think we got it. I think we got it. I think we're good. Okay. All right. So we've got TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We're live everywhere. This is so exciting. It's working. It's everywhere. Okay. So this is episode 2 of the Imperfect Millennial Mom podcast. So welcome back. I'm your host, Melissa. I am an elder millennial. I enjoy music. I enjoy being outside. I enjoy tea and taking drives. I mean, that's what I enjoy doing as a human when I am not being a mom. My husband and I live with our 7-year-old here in Ontario, Canada. Each week here on the Imperfect Millennial Mom podcast, I talk about stories from motherhood and my self-love journey. I'm actually going to be changing things up from last week. So last week I kind of had 2 parts. I've decided that there's going to be 5 parts to each episode of the podcast. So these parts are me. So there'll be some stories about me, about my week as not a mom. The other part will be motherhood. So it'll be my stories from motherhood. Self-love. So how I taught myself to love myself and how I learned to fall in love with myself. My mental health journey. And then finally, I'm going to finish it off with former triggers. So this is kind of how I'm going to be formatting these podcasts, and I'm really excited. I also finally decided that once we have recorded 6 episodes here live, we will start putting them up on the podcast apps for you to be able to enjoy if you are not wanting to watch the video, but you want to just listen while you're driving or walking or whatever. So each week I'm going to talk about stories. Part of this journey that I've been on is to be authentic and to talk about how I feel. And that's what this podcast is all about. We don't talk about our feelings enough as mothers, and this is the time for me to do it. Motherhood. It's often romanticized, and it's devastating to moms when we realize that it's not like that. It's not this like rainbow butterfly, happy times all the time. It is hard. It is a hard job, and you don't realize it until you're actually in the job doing the job. And not enough moms talk about it. And I think we need to talk about it more. So I encourage you to share your stories, ask questions. I will try to keep up the best I can through all 3 platforms. And hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I'm not sure if there's anybody on YouTube, but if there is, could you please let me know if you can hear me okay? So hopefully it is working. This is all new to me. So we're going with this. Okay. So first, I'm going to talk about me and like some stories from my week. About a week and a half ago, I had a visit from an old friend. He lives out in Alberta now, so I haven't seen him in about 5 years. And can I tell you how hard it was to be mom and friend at the same time, especially since this friend hasn't seen me as a mom really. And the last time he did, my daughter was 2. And we were on vacation, so it was very different. So it was very hard to jump back and forth between friend and parenting. And it's just very weird. And I'm just wondering, have any other parents experienced this? I'm just curious. So let me know below if you've experienced this before, because it's weird. And I don't know if it's because I don't know the reason. I don't know if it's because we haven't seen each other in so many years. I don't know if he's never really seen me as a mom before because he hasn't. So I don't know. It was just weird for me to jump back and forth between those roles. But I've also told my husband the same thing. He has friends, and he wants me to get to know some of his friends. And it's hard because we do both have kids, to do like the friend and kid thing. And I don't know. I don't know if it's just me. Please let me know. This past Saturday night, actually, my husband and my daughter went for a sleepover at one of his friends' houses. So there is a friend that they get along with, and they frequently have sleepovers. And then I get a night alone. I was up until 3 a.m. doing all the things that I wanted to do. So it was a new moon. I was doing moon work. I was doing some seasonal things. I was doing stuff like preparation for the podcast. I was journaling and it was just so quiet, and it was so nice. And I had no idea it was 3 a.m. by the time I went to bed. But it was so nice, and I loved it. Absolutely, absolutely loved it. So if you are a mom and your husband wants to go have a sleepover somewhere with your kids, take it. Let him take the kids. Trust me, you will not regret it. And I love it. I love that he has friends that he has this ability with, and that he's comfortable. Okay, so Aria's mom here on Instagram has said, I have for sure. My bestie doesn't have kids and is a lot younger. It's super hard to balance both. It's kind of like going out with two friends that have totally different interests. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. And the two of them don't care about each other's interests because they just don't know each other. I love how you put that, Aria's mom. That is exactly how it is. Absolutely. So thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that this is not just a me thing, but it is like it's a motherhood thing. So thank you very much. Okay, so I wanted to talk about a TikTok video, and so there was this TikTok video about it was this man asking women who have good sex lives what makes them good. And so I was thinking and stuff, and then the other day my husband was going out the back door to go take out the garbage and do laundry, and I looked at him and I was like, hey, any of your friends ever ask, it's because you do laundry. That's why. So it was just kind of funny. Anyways. So next, we were talking about motherhood. So motherhood, it's this I don't know, it's this wild ride that I've been on for the last 7 years. And I have loved a lot of it. And a lot of it has made me cry. But that's okay. I've learned how to deal with my feelings. So I've kind of broken my motherhood journey at this current time into 3 chapters. So I'm currently in chapter 3. And chapter 3 kind of started in, I'm going to say June. Chapter 1 for me was when my daughter was born in 2015. Up until I say she started school. So in September of 2019. So those first 4 years, I call chapter 1. And it was very child-led. We followed our daughter's lead on a lot of stuff. But we also both solo parented the majority of the time. So if we were with our daughter, it was usually her with one parent only. because of the hours that we worked and how we needed our childcare to work out for us. We needed to be able to split our working time so that we were able to make our childcare stretch farther, if that makes sense. So we both had multiple jobs. We both had a full-time job and side hustles. We were both overworked and exhausted. Um, and for me, like I felt we always had to plan family time. So it wasn't just like, okay, it's Saturday morning, like what are we doing as a family today? Or it's Sunday, like every Sunday, as a family we do this. Or so we didn't really have that, with the exception of the times that we'd like go to my dad's for dinner. And if Jesse wasn't working on a Sunday to come with us. So we had to plan our family outings and it was so exhausting. Let me tell you, like trying to coordinate when you have two totally different schedules, and just trying to figure things out. And then even then trying to plan things with friends, it was really hard. And I wanted for years for Jesse to work on Monday to Friday. I was like, I just want you to work Monday to Friday. If you worked Monday to Friday, it would be so much easier because then we would get the weekends together. But in actuality, I worked weekends too. So Lily was with our sisters a lot on the weekends, or friends, because I was working. We both worked on Saturdays. So I didn't realize I had so much anxiety. So I remember having a friend who had anxiety, and um she would just like tense up. Like taking her to the market once, and she was holding strawberries and it got really busy, and she froze and she just stood there. And so that's what I thought anxiety was. And when I became a mom, like the anxiety I had of like, what if something happens to my child when I'm not there? That was like my most, I think, anxious worry. But at the time I also didn't have an option. I tried not to think of that. So when those anxieties would come, I would just like push them down with that grief that I talked about last week. Like, so the grief and the anxiety that would come, I would just like shove it down and push it down, because if I don't think about it, it doesn't exist. Was kind of how my brain worked, which we know that's not true. That's not true. um, I I was a crunchy mom. I still am a crunchy mom. Um, but I've changed in the ways that I'm crunchy. So back then it was no sugar, no candy, no like junk food, no fast food, home cooked everything. My husband and I became vegetarian when our daughter was 3. So, um, it was just crunchiness. She didn't have McDonald's until I think she was 5, from us. Um, and then the other thing I realized in this time is I had little self care and little balance. So everything was either for my daughter, my husband, so family, my career, and that's all. So basically, I was living for my family and my career, and that's all. And not even my career money. That's what I was living for, like to try to pay my bills. And there wasn't that balance. There wasn't that, like I wasn't doing the things that I loved to do anymore, and that's not me. That's not who I am. I love doing the things that make me happy, and it really helps fill up my cup. And when I don't do those things, I'm not filling up my cup, and then therefore I'm not happy. So that's just one of the things I really learned from this motherhood journey is just really tapping into yourself and knowing like listening to yourself, right? So pre-COVID, I was the mom I always wanted. Like I let my daughter do the things and the stuff and explore, and we baked, and but I was also so snappy. like so snappy because I had anxiety. So like I remember we would like bake and I'd give her the cup of for flour, and before I had an opportunity to explain things, the flour would be everywhere, and then like I would be like I would get snappy, and it's because I was exhausted. I was exhausted. I had anxiety. I didn't know I had ADHD. Like there was so much going on in my life. I was so overstimulated as a mom. Um, and I didn't know how to relax ever. Actually I did. I would relax with a glass of wine, honestly. Um, but I couldn't shut my brain off. I never had enough time for anything. And it was just so frustrating. So frustrating. And it was at the end of that time when I quit my corporate job. So just before my daughter started junior kindergarten in September of 2019, I quit well, I was working part-time at the time, but I quit my corporate job um, because it was too much. I didn't love what I was doing anymore for work. I hadn't in many years. It wasn't fair to the people that I was working with anymore. And it wasn't fair to my family. It wasn't fair to my family that I was giving other people all my time all day and then coming home and I had nothing left to give at the end of the day. And I didn't want to live that way anymore. I was done. It was exhausting. And I really loved like when she started school, we would spend, I'd pick her up several days after school. We would hang out. Some days I would take her to the studio that I worked in. So we would work together and she would like color and play with the other kids. And it was really, really nice. And, it was nice not having a million things on the go anymore. Everything was just kind of under this like entrepreneurship that I was doing. Okay. So that's been like some of the work that I've been doing with myself and just like my motherhood journey and really diving into like where it came from. And now I'm talking in circles. So, okay. So another thing that I'm learning in this motherhood journey is about showing respect. So, when our kids are younger, we show them by modeling, right? When we want them to eat, we eat with them. When we want them to clean up, we clean up. So we've always modeled things, and respect should be no different. Teaching kids respect should be the same as teaching them how to eat or how to brush their teeth. We show by modeling. And I have a really hard time with this because cleaning up should be your own responsibility, right? You made the mess, you clean it up. That's what we were taught, right? So why do I have to clean it up? Like, but Lily and I have also had this conversation of things being moved. So I am currently recording on her desk. I am using her space to record my podcast. I do it because the window is right here and I get the best lighting, natural lighting for this. So to use her desk, I need to move everything off her desk to set up my equipment, right? So to show respect, when I'm finished, I put this space back exactly how I found it. Because it's nobody else's responsibility to clean up my stuff than for me, right? So if I can't show her that I clean up my stuff when I borrow her space, how am I expecting her to show me how to clean up if she hasn't had that modeling? So that's what I do. And we had a conversation the other day. Things were moved and we talked about it. And her thought process was, I don't have to clean it up because it's not my stuff. So I responded back with her with, but who put it there? Like, who put it on the floor? And she goes, well, I did. And I said, okay. So if you put my stuff on the floor, who should clean it up? And she goes, well, you should, mommy. It's your stuff. And I said, well, but I put my stuff where I wanted it originally, but somebody moved it. And then you could see like it clicked in her brain and she was like, yes, this makes sense. Okay, I did move this. I need to clean it up. And I think it was a great way for it to click and for her to really understand what was happening. Um, I am going to briefly talk about this. It's a controversial issue. And I don't want to get into debates over it, but this is my feelings on education here in Ontario. So actually in Canada or North America in general, because we all have the same like kind of similar school year. So here every year we disrupt our kids' lives for 9 weeks. 9 weeks for summer. We let them have fun. We let them free. We let them loose. We let them run around. We send them to camps. We do fun things. We do outings. And then all of a sudden, all that fun comes to a halt and they get thrown back into a classroom for 5 days a week. Very structured. No opportunities to do fun stuff that they're used to. And it's an issue that I had. And as a former educator, I fully believe that school should be year round. Hear me out before you jump down my throat. It should be year round, but with those 9 weeks of summer broken up throughout the school year. And then with like 4 weeks off in the summer. And I understand in Ontario, we can't do it because our schools are too old. We don't have air conditioning. The kids would boil. I understand. I understand all the reasons why we can't do it. Okay. I've heard them all. This is just my opinion as a parent and as a former educator, especially a parent of a neurodiverse student who hates change in her routine. She would much better off have like a week or two off here and there, honestly. But that's just my opinion as a mother and some of my feelings in regards to the education system. So, okay, so next, we are going to talk about my self-love journey. Or I'm going to talk about my self-love journey. And just the start of it and how it kind of started. So, when I started my self-love journey, I realized there were people in my life that didn't respect me. They didn't respect the boundaries that I held. They didn't respect the belief systems that I had. They didn't respect who I was as a person, and they expected the respect, but they didn't give respect in return. And I ended up having to cut those toxic relationships from my life. So kind of when I started this journey, I distanced myself from the majority of people in my life. And I kind of set the boundary of like, I need some space. I need time for myself. And the main part of this was I had always looked for validation from other people, and I never looked for validation from myself. And I never trusted myself when I had the answers here inside of me, but instead I would rather talk to 10 different people about a problem to get the same answer. So I also did this in my parenting. I would post in like parenting groups, or I'd post on my social media, like I never trusted myself. And then I realized that I didn't respect myself. So how could I trust myself if I wasn't respecting myself? So I started to notice how people treated me, how people respected my boundaries, and then I started to cut people out of my life. I ended some relationships that were short, people that I didn't know for very long, and I cut others out that had been long relationships. And some people I didn't even like, a lot of people I didn't give explanations to either. I felt that that was just seeking validation, right? Like I would just be looking for validation, which is the one thing I am trying not to do. And if I try, yeah, so I didn't need that validation. I didn't need people being like, oh, but I'll change. Like, no, I'm doing this for me. I need to cut you off. Goodbye. And I did that with a lot of relationships, and it was really hard. And I had a friend ask me, oh, I was talking to a friend and I was saying how lonely it was. And then I realized it's actually not that lonely. I'm not lonely. I enjoy having a very small knit circle, and slowly allowing people back into my circle right now so that I can make sure that I'm spending the energy on the people that I want to spend energy on. And that I still have the energy for the people that matter at the end of the day, which is myself, my husband, and my daughter. Um, so that was it was a really interesting part of my journey, was the learning to respect myself. And if I had people not respecting me, that meant I wasn't respecting myself. So, it's been a heavy episode so far. All right, I'm going to take a little sip of water. All right, so we are almost done. I've got about 2 more parts, and then we will be heading off for the day. So part 4, this is my mental health journey. So in 2020, I was on TikTok, like a lot of other people during the pandemic, and I got on neurodiverse TikTok, and it made me start to question my whole life. And I realized that a lot of what my daughter does, I did at her age. And it was all the things that used to drive me crazy and that I know drove my mom crazy. So I started reading study after study about ADHD in women, late diagnosed ADHD, anxiety, depression, links with ADHD, with anxiety and depression. And in January, I was diagnosed. And it literally felt like my world came crashing down on me. I forgot how to do everything. Like I honestly could not remember how to do anything. And then realizing that my entire life had been harder for this reason. This was the reason why my life seemed harder than everybody else. And it's because I had this barrier that nobody else did around me. So I had a hard time for that reason. And I really unraveled after that. So I started making big changes. I decided to sell my business. It was an anxiety and a stressor that I did not need anymore, to have my company at the time, and having people have to rely on me. Like I had employees that were expecting me to be present. And after being diagnosed with ADHD, I had a really hard time being present, because I was battling so many different feelings and emotions inside. I had to decide if I wanted to medicate for ADHD or not. And this was a hard decision for me, because at the time I was already on 20 milligrams of Cipralex and 150 milligrams of Bupropion per day. So I was really unhappy. I was really uncomfortable adding another prescription to this roster that I already had. I was also plant medicating as well. So I made a decision in February that I was going to give it a try, because of the link between anxiety and depression with ADHD, my wonder was, am I being over medicated with these things, but actually need to be medicated for this thing? And that's exactly what it was. So, first time I took Vyvanse, it kicked in while I was driving. It was not a good thing. My head just got really quiet and I was like really bored. So it was not good. But receiving this diagnosis allowed me to realize how I was abused and gaslit over the years. It allowed me to see that my mom was a narcissist. It allowed me to see that I can heal all these stories, but that I was actually doing all this work before COVID, like before the pandemic. In this like chapter 1 of my motherhood, I was healing these stories already. It was just in chapter 2. Chapter 2 is like a little break. You just need a break. So, things that I noticed when I started taking Vyvanse, I micromanaged so much less. I could let my daughter just sit and play and I didn't have to interfere. I could sit and relax and just watch her and it was okay. One other thing that I've noticed is if I have taken my Vyvanse that day, food doesn't look or taste good. Like I can't. And if you're on Vyvanse, I know you understand. I know you get it. So it's just, so yeah. Things I thought were going to happen. I thought my house was going to be cleaner. I thought I'd have more energy and I thought I'd be on top of things. But those were routines and systems I had to learn after working through a lot of this trauma linked to my ADHD and not being diagnosed until I was 40. So, all right, we are almost done. We have our last part, which is former triggers. And I'm going to talk about my viral toast video. So on TikTok, about over a month ago, I had a video go viral over my daughter spreading butter on toast. Literally, it was her hands, a piece of toast, and butter. And all the video said was something along the lines of how this used to trigger me. And it went viral. And I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about the triggers that came with that because there's more to it than I was able to put into a video. And there's more that I have learned over the last few months with the work that I have been doing. And just knowing that there is more to this component than I had originally thought. So originally it was the inner mom of me being like, it's just easier if I do it. It'll get done faster. It'll get done properly. We are in a rush. We need to get this done. The faster we get this done, the faster we get to school, the faster things. So that was one of them. Another trigger was just the inner child of me, or my inner, because I am a former micromanager, it, just like not even that you're doing it wrong, but just like, oh my God, it's too slow, or like you're missing a spot, or like, and the fact that you know that you're just going to have to do it yourself as a parent. Like it's just, you're going to have to do it. So that's kind of what the toast video was about. It was just about these different triggers. It's a sensory thing. There was so many things, and it's just so funny that like, it went wild on TikTok. So yeah, it's interesting to see these former triggers that will pop up in my life. And I'm just like, oh, that's not even a trigger anymore. Like, it's so silly that something like this would have triggered me back before. So All right. Well, that is the time for today. It's a bit of a shorter podcast this week, but that's okay. I hope you all enjoyed it and that you will be back again next week. Next week, I'm going to talk about chapter 2 of Motherhood, which will be the pandemic and the lockdown. So we were locked down quite a bit here in Ontario. So just talking about the school breaks and stuff and motherhood during that time. So okay, it is 1:37. So thank you for coming. I am going to exit TikTok first. Okay. TikTok has ended. You guys are all jumping on now. I was just about to go. Hi, ladies. I was just finishing up, but welcome. So that is the end. I'm going to end here on YouTube.